The ocean has always been a realm of unpredictability, a vast expanse where the prowess of human engineering is constantly pitted against the raw, unbridled fury of nature. In the modern era of cruising, ships have become floating cities, marvels of technology designed to glide over the waves with barely a shudder. Among these giants is the Anthem of the Seas, a Quantum-class vessel owned by Royal Caribbean International. When she launched, she was heralded as one of the most technologically advanced ships in the world, boasting a North Star observation capsule, robotic bartenders, and state-of-the-art stabilizers. However, despite her size and sophistication, the Anthem of the Seas would become the protagonist in a series of maritime dramas that tested the limits of her design and the nerves of her passengers. While she has sailed hundreds of successful voyages, her history is punctuated by specific, harrowing encounters with the elements, particularly during a tumultuous year in 2016 that would make headlines globally. This narrative explores those dark days when the unsinkable feeling of a luxury liner collided with the reality of hurricane-force winds. In February 2016, the cruise liner Anthem of the Seas departed from Cape Liberty in Bayonne, New Jersey, embarking on a scheduled 7-day voyage southward to escape the winter cold. The itinerary was set to take thousands of excited passengers along the U.S. East Coast for a sunny vacation, with planned stops at Port Canaveral in Florida and the tropical destination of Nassau in the Bahamas, before the ship was scheduled to return to New Jersey. On board were approximately 4,500 passengers and 1,600 crew members, many looking to escape the biting cold of February. As the massive vessel navigated out of New York Harbor, the mood was festive. However, weather forecasts were already predicting a developing low-pressure system off the coast of the Carolinas. At the time of departure, the captain and the cruise line's shoreside team monitored the weather, believing the ship could outrun or navigate around the worst of the storm. This calculation would prove to be a terrifying error. By Sunday, February 7th, as the ship sailed southward off the coast of the Carolinas, specifically near Cape Hatteras, a region historically known as the graveyard of the Atlantic, conditions deteriorated rapidly. What was predicted to be a manageable gale exploded into a violent storm that met the criteria of a hurricane. The clash between the cold air from the north and the warm waters of the Gulf Stream fueled a meteorological bomb. By the afternoon, the sky had turned a bruising shade of gray, and the swells began to rise ominously. The captain, Klaus Anderson, made an announcement that passengers should return to their staterooms for safety. This was the beginning of a lockdown that would last for hours. The wind speeds, initially forecast to be much lower, skyrocketed. The ship's anemometers recorded gusts exceeding 100 miles per hour, 160 kilometers per hour. Passengers reported walking on walls as the ship listed heavily, sometimes tilting as much as 20 to 25 degrees. In the cabins, chaos ensued. Furniture that was not bolted down slid across the rooms. Drawers flew open, spilling clothes everywhere. Glassware shattered, and passengers clutched onto beds and fixed structures, terrified for their lives. On the upper decks, the scene was even more dramatic. Videos captured by passengers showed the ocean churning violently outside balcony doors, which were being hammered by the wind. In the public areas, the damage became visible. Ceiling panels in corridors and dining areas collapsed under the strain of the ship's flexing. In the onboard shops, bottles of liquor and perfume were thrown from shelves, creating a mixture of broken glass and liquid on the floor. A portion of the propulsion system on the azimuth thrusters was pushed to its limit to keep the ship positioned against the wind. The propulsion system was pushed to its limits. The ship's azimuth thrusters worked at maximum capacity to keep the vessel in position against the relentless wind, fighting a battle of sheer power against the elements. While the physical damage was visible, the atmosphere of confinement added a layer of psychological dread. For over 12 hours, passengers were effectively locked in their staterooms, watching the ship's position channel or staring at the terrifying sea state through their windows. To help calm the nerves of the trapped guests, the captain authorized free access to the cabin minibars, a small comfort during the ordeal. Meanwhile, on the bridge, the crew was engaged in a high-stakes marathon of navigation, constantly adjusting the ship's heading to slice through the waves rather than taking them broadside. a critical decision that likely prevented structural failure despite the intense rolling. The psychological toll was immense. Many passengers later recounted believing the ship was going to sink. The captain remained on the PA system, trying to reassure guests that the ship was structurally sound and that they were safe. But the howling wind and the violent motion told a different story. The ordeal lasted for over 12 hours of peak intensity before the winds began to subside. Miraculously, there were no fatalities. However, there were injuries. 4 passengers reported minor injuries requiring medical attention. The ship itself suffered cosmetic damage, but its seaworthiness remained intact. The North Star observation arm and the Flowrider surf simulator were inspected for damage. Following the storm, the decision was made to cancel the remainder of the cruise. The ship limped back to Bayonne, escorted by the U.S. Coast Guard for the final leg of the journey. The backlash was immediate and severe. Royal Caribbean faced intense scrutiny for sailing into a storm that had been forecasted. In response, the company admitted the storm was more severe than expected, but acknowledged the discomfort caused. They offered an unprecedented compensation package, a full refund of the cruise fare to all passengers, plus a future cruise certificate worth 50% of the fare paid. Additionally, they reimbursed passengers for any flight change fees. The incident forced the cruise line to overhaul its weather avoidance protocols, establishing a dedicated situation room at their headquarters to monitor storms and support captains in making route decisions. Although the Anthem of the Seas continued to sail successfully for years, the ocean seemed determined to test her endurance. The ship had barely begun to recover its reputation when, later that same year, it encountered another major weather event. In September 2016, just 7 months after the terrifying February incident, the vessel once again found itself in the path of a storm, navigating through the turbulence of Tropical Storm Hermine off the East Coast. The challenges persisted into 2019, when the ship faced renewed criticism regarding rough weather and itinerary deviations. During these winter sailings, passengers endured severe seasickness, and while none of these later voyages reached the catastrophic notoriety of the 2016 disaster, they served as a reminder of the Atlantic's unforgiving nature